Good evening. I'm Mark Harris. Welcome to DiversiTV Season 2. We are continuing on in our journey through various aspects of the diversity continuum as defined by Lane Community College. Tonight we'll be looking at a GLBTQS QTS perspective, which in case you're not familiar with the acronym, generally speaking, the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer questioning, two-spirit perspective. And I'll introduce our guest in a second. Our mission, if we go to slide, is the DiversiTV mission is to illuminate everyday diversity issues and give the mic and the camera to those who don't always get it. And tonight is definitely one of those intersectional type topics, shall we say. But just to give you this schedule for past events and future events, we started out as we do every term with a Native perspective, because we're on Turtle Island. Then continuing on with a tradition that we've set, we have the Anglo perspective on diversity. Then Africans in America. Then Latino. Asian perspective. And this week we're doing the GLBTQS perspective. Next week we'll be looking at disability. Just before Thanksgiving, we'll be interviewing youth, and we'll be looking the week after Thanksgiving with class issues, and then ending our season with spirituality and / religion. Our guest tonight is Jasmine Swires, and basically the difference, since we actually have had a couple of different lesbians already this season, I decided to look at what we refer to in the diversity training trade as intersectional issues. And the intersectional issues are people are rarely fitting into categories. Many of us actually fit into lots of different categories in terms of the intersections. And one of the things that often becomes an issue in terms of looking with homosexuality is, especially with parents and parenting, what is, this is often raised in terms of dealing with interracial kids. I feel sorry for the kids. And so nobody really gets the kids' perspective. It's usually the adults talking about, what it's like about coming out. Nobody really talks with the kids about, okay, what is it like to grow up in a home, okay, where you have two moms, two dads, blended family, extended family. Nobody talks to the kids. So tonight we have Jasmine Swires, who's an LCC student studying with a dual major, studying to be both a dancer and a doctor, maybe a doctor who works on dancers. And our topic tonight is growing up queer. Welcome, Jasmine.
Hi. Thank you, Mark.
So the question, how did you come to live in Eugene, and why did you choose to live here?
Well, I really didn't have much of a choice. My mom moved here from back east, and here I am, and I've been here my whole life, so 26, 27 years. And I don't know, just living, being the best that I can be in this particular environment.
And what do you find, shall we say, interesting about this environment? What is your experience of the community in Eugene, say, geographically, environmentally, culturally?
Well, honestly, on a cultural level, I haven't seen very many people of color. So, I mean, more and more they're coming through. But I remember when I was like one of the only, African American students in my class. And
what school?
I actually went to Whitaker Elementary to start off with, which is now closed.
Okay.
but everyone knows the Whitaker neighborhood.
Right,
So we'll
yeah.
go into the
Right.
neighborhood scenario in a
Right.
little bit. But
Uh-huh.
and then I went to Kelly and Jefferson, and then I also went to South and Churchill. So I got different perspectives, and actually finished at the Opportunity Center.
Okay.
So, because I couldn't really handle the cultural environment of my high school. So
Churchill and
Churchill and South.
South.
And South. Churchill was a way more harder than South Eugene. South Eugene was definitely could see that I needed to be in a different environment as far as my education because of my circumstances. But Churchill was definitely I had more of the sweeping under the rug type thing as far as my education. Like, we just kind of pass you. We won't see if you're actually getting quality education, and so it was definitely interesting, to say the least.
As a former Churchill staff person, I'm sorry to hear that, but given that kind of stuff happens, and I'm not excusing it, but
You can't.
I'm sorry to hear it, and it's not surprising because it often happens, especially with people who cannot pass the paper bag test. I'm sorry to say. And so that, when you talk about, being the only black kid in class, and that is actually a frequent.
Especially in that particular neighborhood.
In that particular neighborhood.
Yeah. I saw it a lot when I was living in the Whitaker area, which is still, the poorer neighborhoods. You have people that choose to live outside the box as far as like what they want to do with their lives, and then people of color, not just African Americans, but you have a lot of Hispanics as well living in that area. People that choose to have an alternative lifestyle, so gay, lesbians, and people that just aren't with the social norm, which is kind of, as far as living in Eugene for so long, the social norm is definitely blurry here. There's a lot of people that are choosing to live alternative lifestyles, and it's more accepted in this particular area, per se, say living out in Junction City or, somewhere else where it's more conservative.
Would you say the social norm, at least in terms of the advertising, the reputation that Eugene has, would be sort of like middle class, liberal, nuclear family, mom and dad, blah, 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 blah. What would you say the social norm is?
The social norm? Wow. For this town, it definitely fluctuates, and especially from my personal perspective,
right.
The norm where, oh God. I don't know if it would be considered normal, especially for me, living in a household with multiple types of parents, straight parents, gay parents, bisexual parents, not just having a nuclear family. But looking out and at my friends and peers, depending on what area of town you live in, you have different parental styles and stuff like that. So like, if I was to be living in the Whitaker neighborhood, I would definitely see more people with the hippie type vibe. Definitely more, people of color, biracial kids. And then as you're going into like, I don't know, like, it depends because it kind of splits. There's definitely more queer. I'll just put queer for everyone that's in that particular category. There's definitely queer families in the Whitaker neighborhood and the West Eugene area, but then you get into the place where they're more middle class, and they're definitely in like the South Eugene area by South.
Queer and middle class.
Yes, queer and middle class.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, so they're in like the West Eugene, as in like West 18th area, and some in the South Hills, not South Hills, but like the South Eugene area by like Sundance and that area. And
South of 18th.
South of 18th.
So I have definitely heard of, when you talk about these dividing lines in Eugene, which thinks of itself as a homogeneous liberal type city, there's definitely class distinctions about, Whitaker
Yeah.
and, what used to be referred to as Jigaboo Flats, west of Chambers.
Okay.
Right? And then there's you're from north of 18th, as opposed to south of 18th, right? Where, the per capita income and therefore the housing values, therefore the neighborhood becomes more, shall we say, upper crust. So even Sundance and 24th
That's
and
getting
Hilliard,
there. That's that
getting
area.
up there, right? Not Fairmount,
Not
the old money of Eugene.
Right. There's that area, and then you have Hawkins too,
And you have Hawkins, right?
which
Okay.
is kind of, or it's on the west side of 18th. So I mean, it's weird because it kind of connects. That whole area kind of connects in a strange way. Like if you were to go through the back areas of the neighborhood, you can actually connect yourself through that whole neighborhood kind of connects, and that's like one end area of the neighborhood. Like if you want to go into town and get your groceries and do your thing, there's ways of getting to your neighborhood, and not necessarily and bypassing a bunch of stuff, so
Unpleasantness, I would assume.
unpleasantness,
The common folk.
the common folk, that definitely would work.
So, I mean, these observations growing up here, and this is the place that you've grown up
Yeah.
in different neighborhoods
Yeah.
and I guess you allude to different, an extended family where you have a number of parental figures.
Yes.
Beyond the biological or
Yes,
basically.
definitely beyond the biological. I'll just say, like, I started off living in the Whitaker area. Actually, I started off living downtown, so towards like 8th by like Wow Hall and all that. I lived in that area, which is definitely the nitty gritty, as far as downtown.
Right.
And then we moved to the area across the tracks on North Polk, so by
Okay.
the Whitaker area, in the heart of Whitaker, right next to the school, and that's my biological. And then we moved to the west side on West 18th, and kind of were by Hawkins actually, but we were down the hill. We weren't up the hill. We were definitely down the hill.
North of 18th.
North
not
of 18th,
south of
not
18th.
south of 18th. I
Yes.
did not live south of 18th. I wasn't on East 18th, or we would call East Side, West Side.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
so I was on the west side of 18th, and then actually after, like, that was with my biological family, and then when I left my family there and I was adopted by different parents and parental figures, I was on the west side for part of it, and then I crossed over to the east side. And before I did that, I went back to the old neighborhood, which was Whitaker, and I was actually in what we call the Felony Flats. So that's 6th
Yes.
area,
Right.
where there's like lots of traffic and all that. I was there for a while, and then I chose to move to the east side, and I've been there pretty much ever since. And as far as like the neighborhood, I'm trying to think as far as like how many people of color actually see in that neighborhood, and there aren't very many. And as far as in the lesbian community, lesbian and gay community, I'm really trying to think how many I actually know that live over there. And I actually know some that live but they're middle class. They're not
Okay.
like near campus. They're not in the poor area. They're in the middll class. So they live over on like Willamette, the upper part of Willamette, so like 37th and stuff
Yeah,
like
right.
that. And they're
Okay.
actually starting to make money. They own their own homes, own property, da 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 da. And then you have like people that, a lot of the lesbians and queer folk in this town actually end up moving out of town because they want to deal with like the country and stuff
Right,
like that. They don't
right.
usually stay in town. So,
So if they have the money, they move.
yep, they sure do.
Yeah.
They don't want to have to deal with being here necessarily, even though, in some respect there's, a pretty strong lesbian community here.
Yeah. And, on previous shows in this season, we've talked to, the lesbians have talked about, some of the lesbian guests have talked about, possibly why that is in terms of as opposed to a San Francisco,
Right,
where
where's strong gay men community.
strong gay men community, men make more money, so boom, Eugene would be a magnet because, some environmental things, but also because, women can make more money and be employed here, et cetera, in a different way. So when we're talking about intersections, then, that already we're starting to see these divides around, okay, sexual orientation, family structure, class. So when we look at, culturally, right? So, and usually culturally, when we talk about that in diversity, right? That usually refers directly to race,
Right.
but it,
Sexual orientation can definitely
sexual
mean
orientation, any number of things. So I assume, at least, your mom was black, right?
that. One of them.
One of them. Okay. So when we talk about, okay, who forms your identity?
This is the juicy stuff.
Okay.
Because let's see, how many, right now I'll just say in my lifetime I think I've had like 4 or 5 different mothers.
Okay.
I have my biological mother, and then I have the mother in my life right now who is queer.
Okay.
And then other women in my life that have definitely, have raised me, with open values. A lot of, they're pagan women and, women that choose to have strength and want to like develop my strength, and then of course I've had some nuclear families with, moms and dads and that kind of thing too.
Okay.
Both black and white.
Okay.
My mother, my biological mother, also raised us. In my biological family, I also had godparents too, and my godparents were a lesbian couple.
Okay.
And I can think about like when I was like 5 or 6 years old, I remember just them being, loving each other, being a family, and I never thought anything of it. It was just them being, just being, and
there was no confrontation.
there was
no anything out of the ordinary.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. It was. I mean, it was just standard. It was. That was it was in my household. I mean, I had
no books like Heather Has Two Mommies.
No. Oh no. None of that stuff. None of that stuff. Like because I had my mom living in my house, and I had my stepdad.
Okay.
Biracial family, because my brothers and sisters are biracial. And then on a few times we had my godparents move in. And they lived with us, and that was like, it was 2 women at the time. They had their roles, they did their thing, and that was that. And then when my parents split up, my mom decided to venture out in different, to do different things, and she fell in love with a woman. But I never thought anything of it. It was just like, oh, mommy's got a new partner. And we didn't use the partner term.
Yeah, right.
We didn't do any of that stuff. That didn't exist. That was not in my vocabulary at all.
Right.
It was just like, okay, there's people in my house, and, I was very asexual. I didn't really think about that. And then one day, my mom, she comes to me and she comes out and says she's gay, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, whatever. What is that supposed to mean?
Yeah.
And I've seen gay people my whole life.
Yeah.
So it didn't dawn on me like, oh, this was so different. Oh, this is like, whatever. So, I was like, okay, you're gay, and I wasn't even like, I didn't even have 24 hours to really absorb it. I went to school the next day, and someone asked me, "Is your mom gay?" And I was like, whoa, did everyone else know about this? And I didn't know about this.
Was there an email?
Was there an email?
Did I miss the memo?
Yeah, did I miss the memo? Exactly. And the first thing, and I'm not sure if it was out of fear or just out of like total like, I was like, no. Automatically. It just was like, no.
Well, that question and how it was asked and the tone and all that kind of stuff. So is that like a positive thing, a negative thing? That's so gay. Like that? How was the question asked?
It was like, they just came out, is your mom gay? Just little kid, really like kind of in your face. I want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, no. I didn't really know what to say. I didn't know how to address it.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think anything of it afterwards. I mean, I kind of did. I was kind of like, that was so weird. Did I just,
deny
did I
what
just
you
deny,
just told
right.
me? Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, well, I've seen my mom with men,
Yeah.
And I didn't even really think about that necessarily, but I was just like, it didn't make any sense to me of it being bad, of it being anything that was abnormal.
Right.
Because it was like, it was just addressed to my mother. It wasn't addressed to my godparents, who I'd seen, being lesbian my whole life, So I didn't know what to, I didn't see that there was a difference, because, I mean, obviously there wasn't, but it was being addressed to me like it was something
big, like a big deal.
Like a big deal.
Right, and you hadn't had the sex talk then.
Well, we did.
You did?
I think,
Okay.
because I
So
might have been a little older, maybe 7 or 8. So I definitely had the sex talk because I had asked my mom. But then, like, she gave me books that had both people. I didn't, I didn't see, I got to see both sides. I didn't get to see just man and woman. I didn't get to see woman, I got to see everybody.
Because she had been with men, and you figured out that, okay, she had to be with a man to make you.
Right, yeah, she definitely gave me that, but then, of course, this is where it gets really crazy. Because, my godparents, my 2 gay women, I saw her pregnant, So I didn't, I knew that they loved each other. There was
Right.
She was pregnant, I mean, I knew that there was a sperm involved, period.
Turkey baster, sperm donor. They didn't say. You didn't get into their business.
I didn't get into their business. I totally didn't expect it, because it wasn't just that my godparents were, the pregnant one in particular, she was a black woman. So there's certain things that you just don't be like, how do you do that? It's just because it's rude.
Right.
And I mean.
Well, you absorbed enough of black culture to
right.
Okay.
I don't cross the bedroom. Exactly.
Right.
So
children don't ask that.
Right. We don't ask that particular. But my mom, being a college-educated woman and way more open about certain things, I asked her about stuff like that, and she gave me details. Some of them way more than I needed, but at the same time, at 7 or 8. But at the same time, I was just like, it wasn't given to me in a way that was taboo. This is normal. This is natural. This is your education. This is how we live. This is what makes us.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, ooh, sex. It was more like, this is sex. This is how it goes.
Matter of fact. Okay.
If anything, the thing that I was more, what I thought was more, I was more into relationships, like functional and dysfunctional relationships. Not who you were having sex with and sex was taboo. Is that person treating you with respect?
Okay.
Being male or female.
That was part of your upbringing.
Yeah, and maybe not necessarily consciously, but that's something that I picked up as, watching my mom go through dysfunctional and functional relationships and knowing when I liked the person, male or female, and when I didn't like them. I was very observant about how they were treating my mom, So when I left that household, and she moved on with her life and I did mine, I basically ended up with one of her partners, that ended up being my other mother and is my mother to this day. She is there for me more than my biological, and she's a white woman and she's queer, and that is and I got a lot, it's funny because I got a lot of my education of being a black person, a black female, from her. She's not black at all.
There is some interesting irony in that, I mean, the parallels that, I can see living in this town about, there's no black bookstore.
No.
Right? So if I want, back in the day when Izzy was still alive, if I wanted, to get the new bell hooks or a book about black women in history,
you had to go to a lesbian bookstore.
A lesbian bookstore,
sure did.
Right? I mean, so you've been to my office, so you've seen the autographed picture of Alice Walker. I mean, Izzy sold that to me, even though, it's like, hey, Alice signed that and she handed it over to me because of whatever work I was doing at the time, right? So it has always been the height of irony to me to be able to get that level of sophistication in terms of, black female literature from a white lesbian bookstore.
Yeah.
And so, for you to say now, I mean, because now there's multiple levels that, because the rackaroo, shall we say, against gay people, part of the homophobia, part of the, Andy Rooney in 60 Minutes, I just think it's not homophobia, it's not a phobia, I just think homosexuality is wrong. Well, it's a reality, so deal with it. In a previous generation, you would just say interracial marriages are wrong too.
Yep.
So whatever. So, basically people object because, they won't have good role models, they'll grow up queer, they'll yada, yada, yada. And it's like, okay, you're having a level. So I know this as a preventionist, okay, in terms of you want to avoid sexual trauma, sexually transmitted diseases, et cetera, et cetera. You basically brief your kids in as soon as they're able to form the question. Whenever they're able to form the question, and many of them are able to form the question at 5 or 6, okay? So you're having I have to admit, you're having a more sophisticated sex talk without having the sex talk, right, than I did in a quote-unquote normal nuclear middle-class black family, right, where it's not like it was taboo. Dad's a doctor.
Right.
So, but it's very clinical, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Nothing about dysfunctional relationships, nothing about, they're married today. So, all right. I don't know too many people, in my generation that are married for 52 years.
No,
so,
no.
So, and your relationships are a little bit more fluid. But, one of the things that I see definitely as a healthier conversation around sex and sexuality being, matter of fact, and that, so-called homosexuals are not focused on sex to the degree that heterosexuals are at all.
Yes.
It's not about that.
No,
all right?
it's not.
But it is about some respect in how they treat you, whether it was, whether mom was in a heterosexual relationship or bisexual or whatever the label it is we're calling. So you were there to see that. So having a white lesbian, give you information on what it was to be a black woman, I mean, that's not the first time I've seen that or heard about that.
No.
But
well, she chose to be educated about, other people's, cultures. She's definitely what we would call an ally, but at the same time, she knew that she couldn't overstep her boundaries either. She knew that I needed to figure out what it meant for me to be a black woman too. And I definitely did get a lot of it from my mom, my biological mother. But I mean, when it came down to it, she wasn't around for me to ask the serious questions. And she kept, my mom, she forces like, Alice Walker and, Toni Morrison and,
right.
All these books down my throat. And, I honestly was not interested in reading a lot of them, not because they're not good literature, but because I just didn't feel like they were talking about me.
Right.
They didn't speak to me,
Partially,
things that didn't really talk about my race, or my sexuality or anything like that. Because I'm definitely, a friend told me that I'm an ambassador of my culture.
And what culture would that be?
Being an African American living in this particular town, because
Okay.
I live with lots of Caucasians, but also, if you're talking about sexual orientation, I'm an ambassador of my sexuality, and that's pretty much what the topic of this particular show is about, is my sexuality, which...
You said you want, before we right? What I thought was really cool, and I shared this with a bunch of our lesbian friends, right? said, well, Jasmine says her sexual orientation is single mom. So it's about that rather than who we hooking up with at any particular time and
Exactly.
place. Which, you know.
Exactly.
And we'll talk about being a breeder because of the, you know, but
Right,
okay.
right.
So what are you saying your sexual
Well,
orientation is?
I don't have a sexual orientation. People are like, oh, what? No, you gotta have a sexual. No, I don't. I'm a sexual being. I was created because someone decided to have sex,
Yeah.
and ta-da, here I am.
Here I am.
You know, I'm, I don't consider myself heterosexual, bisexual, you know, transgender. I don't consider myself any of those things. You know, I'm a mom, you know, and I want to raise my child to understand that, you know, people choose to have, you know, distinctions, but there really isn't. You know, I mean, pardon me, but you know, like for me, when I look at this, it's like, you know, I've been attracted to a transgendered person before. So where does that leave me? Well, it's not bisexual, and it's not gay, and it's not straight. So, geez, where does that put me? You know, where's the category for Jasmine?
Guess
you know?
you'll have to invent it.
Yeah, I've
You
heard
know,
that
I mean,
before.
See, yeah, right. So, yeah, Two-Spirit doesn't really get it exactly.
No.
So,
No,
right.
I'm a sexual being, and I'm attracted to all, all types of people, depending on what category you want to choose to put yourself in, instead of being just a human being. You know, because that's what I am. You know, I was created in a sexual manner. You know, it's, the process of, just even like gender, just gender right there. I mean, there's, we've grown up to think that we only have two genders, and we all know that that's not real. You know, I mean, there's documentaries about doctors switching people and, making them female when they weren't female and all kinds of stuff, you know. And then you have...
It's easier to make a hole than a pole.
Right. Or, whatever, and then you have, like, situations where, like, on a biological level, if you take any kind of homosexuality class, you'll find out that you can have female parts and male parts in the same body.
Right.
And certain hormones are more feminine and some hormones are more masculine, and they can live in the opposite bodies.
Right.
So...
Well, we all make both, like estrogen
yes.
and testosterone. So,
yes. But we're not even talking about on that level. You can have female feet on a male body, just by the way it's formed, things like that, So what makes it to where, like, it's going to be just so, black or white, per se,
so to speak,
like, Mark, you're a man and I'm a woman. Okay, well, that's great, but, my sexual drive, for example, could be more masculine and yours could be more feminine, according to our cultural standards of what that would be,
Right.
I mean, it's very blurry, and it's like, I think it's time for people to recognize that chopping it up and putting in its separate little compartments is not going to make any difference. It's not going to change it. It's not going to make people grow into anything, as far as like a whole human being. They keep talking about, being equal and being fair and everything. Well, first, let's just acknowledge the fact that we are, period, and not try to label it and make it, don't try to dissect it, because when you do that, you're watching it, you're making it something else.
Dissect it in terms of like separating it.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It's useful to say that, okay, this is this and that is that, to make the distinction that, okay, the table is different than the chair, and the floor is different than the ceiling, to make those discernment that things are different where they're different.
Exactly.
But to place value on them. Okay, so again, when you're talking about gender, not to go in too much of a lecture about, sexuality, but one of the things that I always have in reserve in case, a guest doesn't show up, so far that hasn't happened. Well, actually once last season, but it still worked. Okay, so with this particular topic, so for example, in the native concept of Two-Spirit, which is one of the things I want to have, a native Two-Spirit talk about, okay, what is the framework of how that works? So it's not so much about, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender is about who you have sex with You know, I mean, and if you look at the literal meaning of those words in English. But in 117 Native American languages, there's a word for at least a third gender, and some of the particular tribes, like the Osage Nation, have 7. All right, 7 genders within that particular culture, each with a specific role. And so you can have, you know, in the generic term, when you talk about two-spirit, right, as it translates into English, you have a male and female spirit in one body. That makes them a sacred person because they're like a creator.
Right.
Because creators contains both genders and is beyond either. Right?
Exactly.
So you can have a female spirit in a male body who is embodied enough in that spirit enough to take part in male only rituals. And you can also have a male spirit, male body, female spirit, participate in female-only rituals with the women. So, and then you have a Wakandaji, which in Osage means person of mystery. So it's fluid, right? You know, so natives aren't the only ones to do that. You know, in contemporary Africa, you know, as Audre Lorde, you know, famous black lesbian poet, writer, researcher, talked about, the Fawn of Dahomey have 12 kinds of marriage. Okay?
Not 2.
Not
There's
2.
10 more attached to
not
that.
1, not, you know, man
Man
or
or
woman.
right.
12 kinds of marriage, all right? And so when we deal with the reality of the fact that the genetic code puts up intersex people, that's 4 million people, 4 million human births on the planet every year. Let's extend that back 100,000 years. How many cultures would choose to then fully integrate that diversity into their community? So the fact that you have a contemporary African culture doing that, and you have a traditional native culture doing that, it's only a matter of time till you start exploring in other cultures where, before the influence of weaponized Christianity, just to put a face on weaponized Christianity, that is the cross-burning, genocide, conquistador,
crusadering,
right. Okay, that form of, you know, because Yeshua didn't kill nobody, didn't lead no armies, so there didn't, you know, basically kept people from stoning people. So at some point, that becomes different than the original expression. So that's what I mean by weaponized.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So when we start looking at the whole expression of slavery, and there's a suppression of sexual diversity among traditional populations, hello. Oh, saying black people are cursed because God cursed them, and that's why they're black? Weaponized Christianity would say that, did say that, does say that.
And what about people that choose to be, like, gay? You know.
Well, I mean, to the degree that's a choice, because with the reality of intersex people, you know, they're expressing what their genes are having them feel.
But I don't necessarily always think that it's a choice. I think it's just what you are.
Yeah.
You know, you don't choose who you're going to be on certain levels. You know,
Yeah.
you're given a body, you're given biology that you got to work with.
Right.
You know.
That you have to work with.
Period, or you die.
And and hopefully your culture helps you work
Exactly.
with it, right?
Exactly.
And so one of the things that strikes me about what we've been talking about is, okay, this accommodation about growing up queer. Like, okay, what is that? So, well, you're not gay, you're not this, you're not that, you're a mom.
Right.
Right? So, you know, when I introduced that term to you, breeder, right? I mean, it tripped you out.
Oh,
Why?
totally.
Why did that trip you out?
Well, one, just going from, you know, the fact that, you know, in slave days, you know, African men and women, you know, they you know, we had one stock that were breeders that basically, you know, pumped out the kids, you know, either from the massa or from whatever
the interbreeding program that Massa wanted,
right, whatever buck and doe he got together,
right.
You know. So you had your whole breeding population, you had your working population, you know, you had your kitchen staff, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, so when I heard that, I was just like, I was shocked because I'm like, well, wait a minute. you know, like, I mean, first of all, who uses this terminology? You know, I had never heard it before. You know,
who I heard it from was a gay white man.
And that always just kind of, like, that, I mean, I'd never heard that.
Breeders?
I never heard of breeders. And that
Whoa,
was the first thing that
deep.
I flashed to, was like, okay.
And they're referring to heterosexuals.
Right. Okay, they're referring to
not
heterosexuals.
lesbians who get sperm donors.
See, and that's where, like, when you said to me, that was like the first thing I was thinking. I was like, wait a minute, are they talking about themselves like that?
No.
Or are they, so they're talking about heterosexual couples that are breeders. Which is like,
okay, so
you know,
I mean, so it was a bit pejorative. It was a bit negative. It was, you know, whatever, and maybe a counter reaction to prejudice, which you know I can understand as a black person. You know,
I have mine.
White folks, Ofe, you know, crackers, you know.
I can think of all kinds of things, you know.
Talk about, you know, sometimes when we're, you know, I mean, black people can be racist,
you know,
in our own. You know, when we're with our own, we can talk about, you know, the assortment of crackers that we have in Eugene.
Yes.
You know, I mean,
we won't go there. We won't go
we
there.
won't go there.
Because
but I mean, so I can understand the impulse. But you know, breeders. Well, okay, all right. Well, we consider ourselves normal to. I mean, that's what we do. But okay, you're putting us down for being a breeder. Okay, all right. So that's in reaction.
Well, I mean, I guess you could kind of look at look at it in a way. Well, we are overpopulating the earth right now, and we do need to cut down. So maybe, you know, in some respect, you know, Mother Nature is creating a race of people who, you know, may not choose to breed, you know, have the choice to breed, but, you know, biologically can't, you know, as far as, like, you know, if you have two men together, they can't have any kids.
Yeah.
You have two women together,
they have to adopt,
or they have to choose to find someone that's going to donate their bodies to do that.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean,
unless you have a virgin birth, which, you know.
Well,
I've heard of that.
You know,
somebody that admitted to happening that to them, but that's rare.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, you know, so sometimes I think about that. It's like, well, you know, is this Mother Nature's way of you know, creating, you know, some balance? You know, I mean, you see it in animals too, you know. It's not just, I mean, we're animals too. You know, you don't just see it in humans, you know. And you know, my thing about it is, like, you know, choosing to, you know, create a family on a biological level is not the same as having a family on a communal level.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Completely different.
You know, it is. And if you choose to adopt, or if you do choose to actually have children, you know, you're going to be dealing with their friends, you know, which is going to be part of your family anyway.
Right.
You know, you're going to be dealing with more children, you know, whether you choose not to have kids, you know, unless you completely isolate yourself, which I know people that do, from children. You know, you are going to be an influence. You're going to create family. It's just, that's the human nature.
And new definitions, like Uncle Grandpa.
Like Uncle Grandpa, exactly. You know, what is an Uncle Grandpa? It's like, you know, but, you know, it's a blend, you know, and people, I think, need to recognize that on a lot of different levels. Sexually, you know, racially, you know, we're blending. We're not isolating ourselves and becoming like one or the other. It doesn't work. We have, you know, the human existence is a form of continuum. It, you know, we're creating life and dying and recreating life and recreating definitions. You know, I mean, our English language is so cut and dry. It's so black and white. There's really not very much dichotomy.
Well, it seems, despite the presence of Shakespeare, it seems to be a language more suited to accountants than mystics or artists or poets. I mean, yeah, you can rhyme in it.
Or families, you know?
Well, it has these cut and dried categories, and, you know, we had to inject two-spirit into the GLBTQ question, because GLBT doesn't even speak to you're a spiritual being and this is who you are, and it's actually divinely ordained that you be like that, whatever that is, fluid.
I always think it's really interesting, like even when I look at it, even when I look at the acronym, or if that's what you would call
that's
it.
what it is. Yeah.
Okay, when you look at it, it's so chopped. It's so sliced and diced, and it's not a flow.
No.
You know, and that's what, you know, a lot of my upbringing with lesbians and, you know, with you know, gay people, period, it's not, their lifestyle isn't like that. Their lifestyle is more holistic. They're searching for themselves a lot of times, or they have found who they are and they realize they're organic. They're not like, they're not a machine. They're not chopped up. They are a whole person, you know, and, you know, when you look at the language, you know, just looking at it, it's just so chopped up. It's not all encompassing, which is what they want, you know, which is what I would want personally, you know, as, you know, a person that has grown up in a queer household. And like, okay, I'm going to switch topics because this is really important.
Feel free.
I am not an ally. I am not an ally for the queer community.
You're not?
No.
Why?
Because I was
I mean,
raised
like, adamantly.
because I was raised with queer people. That means it's part of my fabric of my being.
Okay.
There is
so
no.
that means you're not outside of
No.
that community.
And that's the way, I mean, it drives me crazy. It's like, you know, what are you supposed to do with that? You know, I'm, you know, just because I've chosen to have some heterosexual relationships makes me, I have to be an ally.
Right.
That doesn't work
Right.
because I mean, it's the fabric of my being, you know? My first concept of love was with watching lesbians hug and kiss each other, you know? I mean, I can't, I don't know. I'm definitely not an ally.
Okay, because, you know, when we talk about that in diversity circles, usually the context is an ally, just like in military terms, is a person with power that advocates for you.
And I don't have power.
Right?
No.
You have the power of definition, sis. I mean, come on. Okay, you have the power of conviction in terms of, you know, your upbringing has put you in a place of, shall we say, intersection. And being in the intersection, I mean, I was talking with, you know, one of our allies today about, okay, if you're in the middle of the intersection, let's say, I don't know what the referent is for Eugene, so I'm just going to use the LA one. Okay, you're at Wilshire and Westwood Boulevard. Okay, now Wilshire Boulevard at that point is 6 lanes. Okay, which is bigger than I-5.
Yeah, that's
and it's
really
a street.
Big. Right.
All right?
Right.
6 lanes, and Westwood Boulevard is, you know, 2, right? And if you stand in the middle of that traffic, okay, you have to be careful because you gonna get hit if you stand in the wrong place.
Right.
And you got, you know, there's people that say, okay, how do I get across this? And you're saying, okay, go now, you go now, you go now. Oh, stop, hold on. Okay, and it's a position of power,
Right.
but it's dangerous because you have, you know, divided loyalties and, you know, there's power in those intersections. Okay, there's power in the trickster people who basically make those things fluid.
Right.
Right? So, I mean, if one of my Indian two-spirit friends says, oh, well, you're two-spirit, and she says, well, that doesn't mean you're gay. Okay, well, then what does that mean? Because I like women. So what?
Where does that put me?
What does that?
Right.
Where does that put me? Okay, you know. So you're saying, you know, in diversity circles, we usually say an ally, somebody outside of that community that has power, that advocates, you know, when that community is being dissed or is in danger.
Exactly.
All right.
But I'm not outside.
So you're not outside of the community,
No.
even though you're a breeder.
A breeder. Oh.
Yeah, but whatever, you know,
Right.
and it's like, okay, looking at those pejorative terms, you know, because it was, you know, like a black gay man that was basically telling me about, you know, we were talking about the whole breeder issue and dinge queens and snow queens. What?
What is that? Yeah.
What? Essex, what is that? He said, well, in gay men's magazines, it's, a dinge queen is a white gay male that likes black gay males, and a snow queen is a black gay male that likes white gay males. Oh, what?
The language is even
The
racist.
language is like racist. It's like, oh, okay. So let's talk about intersections where there's racism in the homosexual community. Definitely there's racism in the heterosexual community and heterosexism. And as Remy was talking about last week, heteronormative language. Okay, right. I mean, this is very complicated, especially for us in the intersections who go, okay, look, let's accept folks at face value and accept them where they have power, because in the democracies that I remember here on this continent, people weren't tripping about who you chose to love as to whether you had a voice in the government or not.
Right.
So
I think it definitely is important to create language for those intersections,
right.
because it doesn't really exist.
Well, it did exist, and it got erased. So trying to bring it back is, one of the things that, DiversiTV is trying to do it by, there's credibility. Oh, it's on TV, it must be true. Right? But to be able to talk about that, that whole idea, it's like, oh, gays in the military, gay marriage. It's like, okay, there wasn't a problem with this before Columbus got here on this continent. There wasn't a problem with this in Africa, even as far as like the 1970s when Herskovits wrote that book and documented that among the Fana Dahomey, who, by the way, okay, had all women armies that went up against Europeans. And if a black woman is leading you into battle against white folks successfully, are you going to quibble with who she sleeps with?
I wouldn't.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay? And so if that's going on in the 1970s, that means it's been going on before Christianity, weaponized or not, right? Coming out of an African context. So that becomes normal. So reclaiming that, multi-literate, the village that's raised, the African village that's raising that child, if they're speaking like 5 languages, several different religions, 12 kinds of marriage, that kid is going to be dealing with that kind of diversity. Sobonfu Somé talks about growing up in a village like that where she was 6 before she found out the woman who was her biological mom. I mean, she was in the village, but she stayed with a different set of extended family, people who were biologically uncles, aunties, or whatever, and she didn't even know that this woman is the person that birthed her until she was 6. Because it didn't matter.
It didn't
right?
matter, exactly.
So there are social forms that exist that are beyond the whole nuclear family thing, and civilization ain't going to collapse because certain people get rights that they used to have before certain people got here.
Right.
All right?
Right. It's about just creating that fluid consciousness with people, I think it's very important. Be you're gay, straight, whatever you want to, whatever label you want to choose yourself to place yourself in, it's about, getting rid of the label that society wants to put you in and actually creating like, a name for yourself. Like, I'm Jasmine, I'm a mother, and I'm proud of being a mother.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of being open-minded, and I'm proud of being able to, interconnect different types of people. And, there's a word for it, but I can't remember it. And one of my friends actually told me that that's what I was. It was basically someone that bridged people that would never talk to each other,
Well, ambassador works kind of
Ambassador works, but it was a better word than that.
Yeah.
And, I definitely wouldn't have to look it up, but I mean, just the fact that, that particular process exists, and I think that more people should step out of their comfort zone and be okay with doing that.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we are getting to the place in the show with final thoughts and all that kind of stuff. So what do you see as persistent challenges in your life? And I guess if we looked at what advice would you have for people living in these categorical intersections?
Step out of your comfort zone and check out what's on the other side. You'd be surprised how much fun you'd have. You know, honestly. I mean, I know I do, and I have lots of friends in different places, and you know, I create allies and I create bonds with people because I see them for who they are, you know, and I would hope they would do the same for me, you know, and you know, people talk about, oh, well, you know, I don't see you as, I wouldn't even go there. You know,
Right.
But I mean, it's nice, but at the same time, you know, I want you to see me for who I am, which is a human being in nice, even toned, dark chocolate skin.
Nice
you know,
suntan.
You know, and I enjoy people's presence regardless of who they're sleeping with.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I'm a mom, and I want to teach my child who happens to be biracial that, you know, he's just who he is. He doesn't have to be in any kind of category. He doesn't have to choose. He can just be and experience it, you know, not analyze it, you know, and dissect it, but just experience it.
Yeah.
Experience being a human being.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
If you like what you've seen, we like you to give us feedback, and you can email your feedback to liveclass@lanecc.edu, and someone will respond. I'll respond. This has been DiversiTV, and we will be looking at issues of disability next week, and in the coming weeks we hope to be repeating this show and repeating these themes with other guests as each term comes on. So if you like what you've seen, feel free to email us. If you have suggestions for guests, we're always open to that. So thank you, and stay strong.